Actually, I think it's about acceptable, don't you? It's just very slighted. We do obviously see death quite frequently in accident department, manipulate that. In working life, we don't enjoy seeing people suffering or people dying, but we are trained to deal with that. Kim was just turning 14 when he died. This was a member of my family, and it is no different, as far as I can see, from a child of my own who had died. I think anybody who has animals to look after them properly has to give part of their life to them, and everybody will say that their own dog is almost human. That's obviously not true, but they nevertheless have a personality, and they give unqualified love and trust in the person that looks after them. So yes, my animals, I believe, deserved to be looked after in death in the same way that I would look after them when they were alive. I certainly didn't want to have the same experience as I remember from the family pet when we were children, being put into a council dust wagon and taken away.
Many people feel like this. Janet often finds it necessary to reassure owners that their animals will be treated with respect at a pet crematorium. Today, she wants to see for herself.
If they aren't able to bury their pet in the garden at home, then this may be the only other option they have to show how much they did care and not have to hide it away and pretend that it was only a pet and it doesn't really matter. And they can, ignore the fact that it died. They can now show that it did matter a lot to them and that they did care.
Would you like to have a look into the chapel of rest?
Yes, thank you.
This is where people will come and just have a last few minutes or whatever with the pet before we bury them or cremate them, should they wish to attend the cremation. There's one dog there for cremation in the morning, which will be done individually so that the owners only get their own remains back. And caskets here waiting to either people will come and collect them sometimes, or we take them back to the veterinary surgery where they've
ones that we get, yes.
come from, or of course they can have them interred in the gardens here. Bit there was a travelling cat. They had a mobile home and used to go travel all over the country, and the cat always went. So they just had a travelling cat. This is the oldest part of the graveyard, and that is the headstone of the original burial, the first one, killed by a tractor. Border collie.
Yes.
The people in the village saw the grave and wanted theirs to come up here, and that's really how it all started. Yeah.
When Kim died, the unfortunate thing was that I never actually was able to hug him and say anything to him. I did that on purpose because I didn't want to upset him any more than he already was in distress. To take them back to the garden centre. And I think that was another reason why I wanted to see him on the following morning up at the in the chapel of rest at the cemetery, to satisfy myself that in fact he was dead. As I say, I think this is part of the grieving process, to be able to see somebody that you love or an animal that you love, to know that there is nothing else that can be done for him or her.
Stanley here came in last night. He'd been badly attacked by a dog with severe wounds to his abdomen, and we're trying to piece things together again, but the organs are badly damaged, and it's going to be a little bit touch and go as to whether he pulls through or not.
Stanley did not recover from his operation.
say.
Yeah. We've got a little bandage on him, just
Yeah.
to cover up all the bruises and everything.
Stanley came in, he lied down in the hall, and you could kind of like see this, it's kind of like a hole.
We think the dog got hold of it in the middle of his belly, but luckily enough, since it happened, we found out that a neighbour up the street hit the dogs away with a shovel. So we think that's how he got away. And he just come in the house and he collapsed. But he didn't look, he was just panting. And I had to look closely to see really what was wrong with him, because there was no blood, no nothing. And he managed then to go upstairs and hide under the bed. And then he jumped on top of the bed, and that's when I noticed part of his belly was hanging on his hind leg.
I think children can actually benefit from dealing with the loss of a pet. I think if there is honesty at that time, that the child is able to accept it as a normal part of life. For them, it may be the first time that they've confronted death, and it is important whether it brings up issues of religion and where bodies go to and all the other things that they will question. It is important that it gives parents perhaps an opportunity to be able to talk about these things.
I don't think it's helped with the way that he's died to get over it. It's not as though we can console ourselves that he died of natural causes and he didn't suffer because he did. Miss him, don't we?
Yeah.
Kate?
Yeah.
In some situations, when a person loses a pet, it may be appropriate to broach the subject of having another pet. But that has to be done very carefully, and there are a lot of situations where it is not the thing that ought to be mentioned at all, because it would perhaps mean that the original pet is devalued, and people do not always want to replace them straight away. I think we have to leave it to them to perhaps suggest it themselves. Now, some think they're in charge, but they'll perhaps get a shock to the system.
The Knox children did want another pet. Their parents bought them a puppy. Today, they've taken him to a puppy playgroup at County's
They
End.
know the ropes. Not mentioning any names, over there. And we will make sure that no harm is done. This is Casper. Okay, Casper's trying again very hard, tail wagging, immediately going up and sniffing.
It was the day after Stanley had died that we saw them, and we just said, and the children were all over them, and I thought it'd be a good thing, and I thought it would help them get over Stanley a bit better.
Now, Sam there, if you watch what's happening, Sam's wagging the tail, but making a noise that might sound a little bit aggressive, and at the moment he's giving mixed signals.